What's going on, vinyl community? Welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. In today's video, I am going to be ranking the Alice Cooper group studio catalog. Of course, the individual Vincent Furnier, aka Alice Cooper, is a legend, but it all goes back to the original group who had the name Alice Cooper, who went by different band names several times as far back as the guys were in high school, and by the mid-70s, they became one of the few glam rock acts to achieve mainstream success within their homeland of America. Outside of making some of the best hard rock albums ever, their elaborate stage shows cannot go unnoticed, with incorporating many theatrical elements such as live snakes, a gallows, and a guillotine, which became the DNA of what is now known as shock rock. Now, the catalog can get a little finicky because obviously vocalist Vincent Furnier took on the Alice Cooper name within the group, and once he went solo, he legally changed his name to Alice. So in most cases, the group and solo catalog kind of get lumped together, which I understand, but to me, there's still that imaginative dividing line. Plus, Alice on his own has put out so many solo albums, even still to this day, and to rank all of them is very daunting. So I figured focusing on the original group would be fitting and also kinda easy. Now, like I always say, this ranking is solely my opinion. It is neither right or wrong. If you think Love It to Death is their best album, then I respect your opinion, but who knows, maybe we'll see eye to eye on some things. But enough of the chit chat, let's jump into what this video is all about. So there are 7 Alice Cooper group studio albums, and coming in at number 7 at the bottom of the barrel is this one. 1969's Pretties for You. This was the band's first album released on Frank Zappa's Straight label, and boy, this album is a doozy. It embodies the group's early psychedelic sound and teeters on experimental rock with its use of odd time signatures, abrasive dynamics, and oddball arrangements to the point where listening to this album is an exercise in mental gymnastics. But if you can dig the quirky style of other acts like Zappa and Captain Beefheart, who were also part of the sort of lunatic fringe within the West Coast music scene in the late 60s, then you will feel right at home. The story goes is that Zappa had them set up in a studio, he left and came back to collect the tapes, and all that had been recorded was them rehearsing the material. So the album, from both a production and performance standpoint, has this rough and ready quality. The one notable highlight on this album is Reflected, which I'll talk about later in this video, and there's some interesting pieces like Fields of Regret, Applebush, and Levity Ball, which is actually a live version that sounds more lo-fi than the studio cuts. This album is the total polar opposite of what the Alice Cooper group would evolve into, and it's best to leave this album for the absolute diehards to dig into. Coming in at number 6 is this album, 1970's Easy Action. This album was the follow-up to Pretties for You, and while it is an improvement in terms of the production and arrangements, the lack of direction is what gives this album this sort of meandering feel. It didn't help that producer David Briggs didn't take a liking to the band and referred to their music as quote-unquote psychedelic shit. Perhaps he would have been better off producing another Neil Young album. There's some moments of psych rock on this album with tracks such as Still No Air, which is where the album gets its title with references to West Side Story, as well as the track Below Your Means. They even polished off the track Lay Down and Die Goodbye, which dates back to when they called themselves Nas. There's also an intriguing yet disturbing contrast when you have tracks like Shoe Salesman and Beautiful Flyaway that are respectively about heroin junkies and DDT poisoning, and musically they sound rather uplifting, melodic, and almost Beatles-esque. Though musically interesting, Easy Action has been lost in the sands of time to the general public, and none of the songs from the album have been played live since the early 70s, leaving it to reside in the same territory as Pretties for You, for the diehards to enjoy. Coming in at number 5 is this album, 1973's Muscle of Love. This is where the cracks started to really form within the group, which led to this album being their last before they broke up. Producer Bob Ezrin, who was very much a George Martin-esque figure to them, knew how to work the best out of the group and approached their work with a cinematic approach in terms of the arrangements and where they could translate well on stage. And there was this sort of divide between Bob and Alice/Vincent on one side and the rest of the band on the other. They wanted to make an album that didn't have to cater to a theatrical production, got them back to their roots, and remained sort of standoffish to Ezrin's suggestions, which sort of pushed him out of the picture. Now, the band definitely had the knack for performing and arranging in a tighter style without Bob's involvement. Songs like Teenage Lament 74, Hard-Hearted Alice, and the title track are some of the standouts, but Muscle of Love comes across as generic. Ezrin's presence is missed, and because of that, this album lacks cohesion, and it's a shame that the Alice Cooper group wrapped matters up with a whimper of a final album. Coming in at number 4 is this album, 1972's School's Out. This album sort of came out amidst a flurry of momentous success that just kept building from the turn of 1971 going into 72. I think it goes without saying that anyone who isn't an Alice Cooper fan can easily recognize the title track, which was a massive hit for the band and has become a classic rock staple. It's an anthem for any student who looks forward to that last day in June. It also sets the tone of the album, which isn't exactly a concept album, but it delves into themes of school, innocence, and childhood, obviously with tracks like Alma Mater and Public Animal Number 9. With that said, the aura surrounding that opening title track, I feel, overshadows the rest of the album, which is kind of a shame because this is their most musically varied album. You have traditional rockers like Looney Tune and My Stars, the jazzy Blue Turk, and there's a strong West Side Story influence on tracks like Gutter Cats vs. the Jets and Grand Finale. It's a fun, cinematic record that definitely requires some in-depth listening to wrap one's head around. Coming in at number 3 is this album, 1971's Love It to Death. This was the first album with producer Bob Ezrin in the producer's chair, and what can be said? He basically became the unofficial 6th member of the group, taught the guys how to play, and really whipped this band into shape from doing meandering psychedelic jams to concise material. It's also this album where the band really honed in on a more traditional hard rock sound that was akin to the bands from their new home base of Detroit, particularly the Stooges and MC5, and you can hear that on tracks like Caught in a Dream and Long Way to Go. Still, even with Ezrin solidifying the essence of Alice Cooper, he still managed to focus on the theatrical elements of the group and make songs translate well both on stage and on record. Particularly Black Juju, where Alice was executed on stage with an electric chair, or Ballad of Dwight Fry, where Alice sung it in a straitjacket. And truth be told, Bob got the desired effect from Alice on the record because he recorded the vocal while in a straitjacket. So when he's screaming, "I gotta get out of here, I gotta get out of here," there is that hint of genuinity. Love It to Death also gave way for the band's first hit single, which became I'm 18, an anthem for teenagers grappling with burgeoning adulthood that's still every bit as relevant today in the generations that have passed. You know, what can I say? This album got the ball finally rolling in the right path for Alice Cooper and was the start of a successful streak where they ruled the hard rock scene in the early 1970s. Coming in at number 2 is this album, 1971's Killer. This album very much follows the same musical formula as its predecessor, Love It to Death. It's full of gritty Detroit hard rock with the singles Under My Wheels and Be My Lover. And when it came to the stage numbers, this album is where the Alice Cooper character took on a more villainous role, particularly with tracks like Dead Babies, where most parents and elders at the time went apeshit about its title, and the fact that Alice would chop up baby doll parts on stage, when in fact it was a song about anti-child abuse. And then the title track that climaxes when Alice gets hung from the gallows. The Alice Cooper group also really flexes their diverse musical muscles on here as well, particularly with the acoustic meets Western track Desperado, which Alice wrote as a tribute to his late friend, Doors vocalist Jim Morrison. And then you have Halo of Flies, which has the band going in full King Crimson-esque progressive rock mode in terms of the song's 8-minute length, and it's basically a suite with many different instrumental parts that easily make the song the highlight from the album. Killer is an album with classics, numbers destined for the theatrical stage, and some of the band's most brilliant and stellar musical moments. And that leaves us with the number 1 spot. And honestly, did you guys see this coming? 1973's Billiondoll Babies. This right here is peak Alice Cooper. The band is firing on all cylinders, and they've managed to boil down their essence on an album such as this that almost serves as a greatest hits album. The stage is set with one of the best album openers, that being Hello Hooray. He even revisits the Pretties for You track, Reflected, and rechristens it as Elected, which becomes an anthem over and over again every 4 years or so. You have long-standing staples of the Cooper Show with the title track, and of course No More Mr. Nice Guy, the brilliant stream of consciousness yet off-the-wall bizarre lyrics of Generation Landslide, and the demented imagery of Sick Things. As for the live show, you obviously have I Love the Dead, which finishes just as Alice gets beheaded with a guillotine, and there's even some comedic relief with Unfinished Sweet, where Alice would take a giant toothbrush and go after someone in a tooth costume. Tongue-in-cheek at its finest. It's certainly the most cinematic sounding Alice Cooper album, but one that is packed with as much theatrics and memorable hooks that an album could encompass. So there you guys go. That is my ranking of the Alice Cooper Group studio catalog. Here's a question for you guys. How would you rank the catalog? Please let me know down in the comments down below. I'd love to know. And if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video. And most importantly, keep the records spinning.